Well, welcome to today's show. I have a very special guest. As many of you have noticed, I have brought my beautiful wife, Jaecee, on the show when I've interviewed other couples. And today we had an interview fall through, and thanks for her great kindness, she agreed to let me interview her about our marriage. I claim to be an expert, right? I coach people how to restart their marriage, how to better their relationships, and what better way to see how things are working or not working than to see in our marriage itself, right? And hopefully most of the stuff is working. And with that, we'll get into today's episode. And Jaecee, tell a little bit about yourself. If you want, you give a little bit of background about our story together, and whatever you feel is important to talk about in today's topic. Today's topic is how our marriage has helped us, how marriage has helped us. So that is our topic. So Jaecee.
Cool. Well, I've known Jaecee for a long time. We met when I was a sophomore in high school, and we were both interested at first, but I wasn't a very good communicator, and so there was interest, and then we kind of grew apart. And then when he came home from a mission, an LDS mission, we got married really quick after that. And it's kind of a funny story because
she conned me into a date, and I'm not being rude. It was, if she wanted to be a con artist, she would be successful, but she's not, thank goodness. But she conned me, and I fell for the con. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. Maybe you better give some info about that so it doesn't just paint a wrong picture here.
Well, he's right. It was all planned. It was something that I had thought a lot about and put a lot of effort into, trying to make sure I had the best possible chance that I could. So I knew he wasn't interested in me because I hadn't been able to communicate before in high school. And
when we were dating.
Yeah, that was a problem because he didn't know that I liked him. He didn't know that I was interested. And so then he didn't want to keep pursuing me if I wasn't interested. And I didn't realize that until after the fact. Looking back, then you can kind of see what had gone on and see what had happened. And I can understand why he felt that, because I was really confusing and didn't express myself very well. So that's something that I've worked on. Anyway, when he came home, I still wanted to have a second chance and to see if things could work out between us. So my brother and I plotted this.
Now, hey, they need to know, her brother is my age. We hung out in high school. I came back from a 2-year mission, right? I hadn't seen anyone. I went straight into work, and I was like desperately hungry for social life because I was working 14-hour days, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. And sorry, my throat, I got something in there, but I had no social life. And so her brother calls me up.
He calls Jaecee to last minute see if he can find somebody to go on a double date with my brother and the girl he was asking. So we planned it so that he didn't have a lot of time to try and find somebody else, and we were hoping he would ask me, and turns out he did after he had asked some other girls and they weren't able to last minute.
Well, who can go last minute on a date, right? Like that's almost ridiculous. And who wants to date someone like that anyway? Not saying that last minute doesn't work out and can't go on a date like that, but there's the perception of I'm desperate, I just need you, I'm in a sense using you to help me help my friend, right? That's kind of what that appeared. And so no, people weren't able to go when I asked him, hey, do you want to go on a date just a couple hours? I need some help, of course not. No, there's no value in that, right? So smart thinking.
Yeah, and that was a lot behind my planning, was to try and make it his idea. So we made him ask me on that first date after he got home. Anyway, so he asked me. That's all the planning and plotting against him that I ever did. I did never trick him or con him into marrying me. That really was his idea. Just that first date.
Yes,
so
yes.
That's kind of our story there.
it's true. And thank goodness she did, because for real, I was not interested. We kind of had not the greatest experience before. And growing up, we were taught by our parents to date around and whatnot. And I wanted to steady date her. And she wanted to do what our parents and, our religion was saying at the time. And she wanted to obey, and I did, but we didn't communicate. We didn't understand that. So I thought she liked me and then didn't like me, and liked me, didn't like me. So I thought she was playing around with me. So I wasn't interested. And so the fact that she conned me on that date was brilliant. And I'm so glad she did. I'm so grateful that she did, because she's a wonderful, beautiful mother. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. But talk about our relationship. Do you like being married to me?
Of course, I definitely do.
Put her on the spot there.
Yes.
Thank you. So how has our marriage been beneficial for you? Or, we talk about marriage a lot on this show. Obviously, we're a relationship podcast, but how has our marriage benefited you? What's been beneficial?
That's a really good question. The biggest thing that comes to mind is a lot of couples are strong. One of them strong where the other one was weak, and then vice versa. This one's strong where the other one is weak. And I think that's been very true for us. Like I mentioned before, I was really, really weak in the communication area. I struggled with words and talking and expressing myself. And that's something that Jaecee's really strong in. And so to have him strong in that, through our marriage, he's really helped me. He's really taught me a lot about that aspect. A lot of things that he's strong in are the things that I'm weak in, and it's really helped me to grow and to develop some of the things that he's good at. I've developed a little bit and gotten better at those things. I think some of the things that I'm strong in have helped him as well, and then working together and kind of learning to get that balance between each other, where then together it's like we have a lot of really powerful things to help us get the things that we want. We have a lot of good traits that can work together and get the things that we want. So
yeah, and I would agree with that, because Jacee's kind of the what's the word, like you're kind of contracted, you're not outgoing. I'm trying to think of the word.
It's kind of slower, takes time, more
yeah
patient,
not that she's not slow, like mentally not dumb. That's just slow to do things, to change, to grow. And I'm in some ways too fast, and not that being fast to change can be helpful, but being too fast to change, always jump and ship to the next ship, that can be damaging. So she's been really helpful for me to maybe apply those brakes, like Nick Sidwell in an interview we did in a couple podcast episodes. He talked about how his wife helped him to apply the brakes, and I was thinking the same with my wife. She helps me apply the brakes, and it's been so helpful for me. A bad habit I developed growing up in my teenage years is I started to assume things about people. And now, don't get me wrong, learning body language, learning about communication, not just verbal communication, but like where your eyes go, what you're doing with your hands, your body, how you're comfortable or how you're uncomfortable and comfortable, right? Reading those things, you can pick up on cues about how people are feeling, and I don't want to say assume, but you can use those cues to help you better make better outcomes using those cues. If you can realize what people are saying and not necessarily just verbally, then you can make better outcomes with that. And so, but with me, I started to assume people in my youth, and would assume things like, oh, you're doing this, well, I'm, then you're probably this way type deal. And she's really helped open my mind to see that, just because someone's acting a certain way doesn't mean that they're exactly what I'm assuming, to keep my mind open. And I think that's been really, really helpful in our relationship, because I think a lot of us, we get used to things. We're brought up a certain way. We're used to how our parents lived in their marriage and their relationship. And so we just kind of continue that on. And it's kind of just, in a sense, being mediocre about your relationship. If you're just doing what you grew up seeing and being taught, that's being mediocre. And Jacee's really helped open my eyes to see other possibilities. And I really appreciate that. I think it's been really, really big, really big. And so, yeah, and that's been a benefit for us. And I like that you talked about specifically the benefit of leaning on each other. And I think that's probably the main key in a relationship is when I'm feeling down, she can pick me up. When she's feeling down, I can pick her up. And sometimes, we get in the trap where one of us feels down, we both feel down.
Yeah.
And we've been really working on trying to fix that. And I think we've been doing a lot better.
I think so too.
And so it's a power that not many couples get to experience. And the whole point of doing these podcast shows is to help couples learn how to tap into that power of leaning on each other for the positive and building each other up, helping each other. Let's talk about something that seemed to be an issue with couples that I have my notes here. I didn't write this down, so I'm putting Jaecee on the spot, but what have you seen in our relationship when we've disagreed? What are things that we've done that have helped us work out our disagreements? Like we have a big issue coming up and we don't, like she sees one way, I see the other way. What have we done in our relationship? Give a bad example of what we've done and give a good example, and feel free to use anything.
Okay.
Like we're going to be vulnerable here.
Okay. So when we have a disagreement, when we first got married, I'm one that would just kind of just shut myself up. I would just close up and just kind of curl up in a ball and shut down. Mm-hmm. And I had a hard time saying anything, which was really hard because then Jaecee was just kind of left in the dark and he had no idea what I was thinking. He had no idea what my opinion on the matter was. Or sometimes he would start to get an idea, but then he couldn't understand why, because I had a hard time actually saying it and speaking up. Even when he would ask me for my opinion, I had a hard time figuring out how I wanted to say it, and I would way overthink what he was going to think if I said this, and it was just really complicated, and I was making it more complicated than it really was.
Oh, and it would frustrate the crud out of me. I was very impatient. That's another thing she's helped me learn is patience. But I was very impatient, and I would get mad at her, which would make her contract even more, because I was getting mad. And it was what she was afraid of. She was afraid, if I say something, maybe he'll get more mad or whatnot. And it's not like our relationship where I'm abusive, I'm 100% dominant. No. And I feel like back then I was maybe more dominant than I am now, but I feel like we've kind of evened that out and learned how to even that out with communication. But just that fear was getting actualized, because that's what she was afraid of. And she wouldn't do anything but contract, but then I would get mad. It would happen. Yeah. It was interesting.
So I would feel his anger, and my primary love language is physical touch. I wanted to be able to speak up better. I felt like he was mad at me if he distanced himself and put space between us. And then when I felt like he was mad, then that made it harder. But I wanted him to like hold me and touch me and snuggle me and say, it's okay, just go ahead and share your ideas. I had no idea.
What I would do is I would leave her because I knew I would get mad and say something I'd regret, and sometimes I would say such stuff that I would regret, but there was no cuddling, no, holding going on, because I would get mad, right? We had to learn this. This was a big learning curve for us because that's not my primary love language, but yeah.
So that's what I used to do, whether it was something little or big. I really just shut down. And he was really good. He would kind of tell me what he wanted from me. He would ask me for ideas and ask me for opinions, and that helped a little bit, but it still took me a long time and a lot of patience from Jaecee to figure out how to share my ideas more freely with him and get to where I'm more open and we can talk together about anything now.
That she can feel comfortable sharing her opinions and have them, not that she needs me to validate them, but to have have me create that environment that, hey, you're safe, I'm safe. And that took me a lot to learn as well, was like, hey, me getting frustrated, me getting angry, because this is what I saw. And I saw this with my own parents. I saw this with many other couples in their relationships growing up, right? And I'm not blaming anyone, but this is what I saw. So this is what I did. This is what I knew, right? And a lot of us do that. We do what we see because that's all we know. And when we reach out to maybe a coach or to a blog or to a YouTube video, and seeing people that have overcome these things, right? This podcast here would be a good example. That's when I started to notice that, hey, you know, I need to love her. I need to be, maybe I have to wait a half hour, but just sit there and not be angry. Like, yeah, we have this issue that we're disagreeing on or not understanding each other about. And I need to sit there and be quiet and be patient and don't push her, don't force her, right? And don't be angry, which is something that was big with me because I had this, I maybe I shouldn't say had, I probably still have, I just don't give into it anymore, but I addicted to getting angry. Like just that was a natural response for me all my life. My mom used to tell me, you have such a bad temper, you know, and that's not a good thing to have. And I had to learn to work on that, to be patient, to create this loving environment. And I think through practice, that's probably really allowed you to speak up more and know that I value your opinion.
Yeah. Growing up, I had a lot of bad experiences with starting to share my ideas or speak up about something and just kind of being shot down.
Just like with your family and friends or
just it happened a lot.
just in all sorts of
I felt like people
pattern.
like kind of attacked me or like just kind of shut me down if I tried to speak up. And so that kind of played into this a lot. But Jaecee, making that environment where I felt like I could share things with him and it was still going to be fine. And we would work through it together. That really helped a lot. Another thing that helped me a lot was starting to write down, get a pen and paper or even just the notes in my phone and writing out what I was thinking and just writing it, whatever came up to my mind, whether it made sense or not, whether it seemed connected or not, I would just start writing and get it all out and take that time to kind of work through what I was actually thinking and because a lot of times when you have a disagreement, the emotions or the big problem really isn't that issue, but something deeper, something kind of underneath that's surfacing up through that. And that helps me kind of become aware of what I actually feel and what I actually want. And it helps me to see the big picture, to kind of figure out what I want. And so a lot of times I'll do that before Jaecee and I talk some more. So, and that's something that when I first started doing it, Jaecee didn't know what I was doing. He thought I was just kind of closing him out. So letting him know, hey, give me a few minutes. Let me kind of write this down and figure myself out first, and then I'll come back to you and we'll talk. That's helped a lot too.
And that's been a big thing for me to learn because I would be like, oh, you tell me right now because I know what's bothering me. I don't want to wait for you. Like, you know, and I would get so frustrated, and having to learn that has been very helpful. And it's also been helpful because like I started doing that a little bit too. Like, I know I'm so angry. But coming to a communication, coming with that anger, it makes it really difficult to communicate. If I'm just sitting here angry at her, right? Not only does that make her want to be contracted or attack back, right? Either one, it makes that wedge or that uncomfortableness there. But learning to sit down and write why I'm upset so I can really get focused on the issue, that helps me blow off a lot of steam. And it's not just with my wife, because realistically, we don't get angry very often anymore. I feel like we don't, which is great. I love that. Do you think the same way?
Yeah. No, it's not very often at all.
Yeah, and before, like in our first couple of years, I think I was pretty mental, you know, pretty crazy, and I'd get upset a lot, and we had a lot of conflict, and that might be a common thing with a lot of couples, but we've learned a lot. We've learned to do a lot better, and taking that time to, you know, realize, what am I really upset about? Is it the issue, or am I mad at my wife because of the issue and other issues? Because issues happen in patterns. Like if you're having an issue in your life, probably you've had this pattern going in your life, cycling in your life since your youth. I mean, new patterns can develop, you know, you can make a new pattern, negative pattern or positive pattern from today on. But common patterns we have in our lives keep showing up. They just keep showing up, and we deal with those. And I feel like with what we've learned, it's been very helpful to get rid of those patterns, to trade those patterns out for better ones that serve us, that help us build our relationship. And that's been really, really helpful. Mm-hmm. So I have this question here. What were some fears that you had about marriage? Did you have any fears? Maybe you didn't fear it at all. Maybe you just thought it would just be so wonderful.
Yeah, mostly I was just excited.
You're most excited. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I really had a lot of fears. I guess I was a little bit nervous about sexual intimacy because I didn't know anything really about that aspect, but we just kind of figured that out together. And that just took some time, but I don't think there was anything that I was really scared about.
Yeah.
About getting married. I was just excited for it. I wanted to be married. So yeah. What about you?
Awesome.
Did you have any fears?
Yeah, and I remember I talked to you about them before we got married. And if you're married listening to this, it's okay to still talk about these ideas. That's what marriage is about, is coming together, being on the same page and moving forward, right? That's the power of a marriage, of a relationship like this. But a couple of things I was worried about when we were considering getting married was I didn't want to get fat. And, we're in America, we're super fat, and I don't have anything against anyone who's fat. That's not the case, but I didn't want to get fat and I didn't want her to get fat. I was worried about, maybe getting pregnant and then she getting fat and then just staying fat. And I was thinking, and call me conceited, call me shallow, but that was a concern for me. I want to live a very proactive life. I want to, I want to be more. I don't want to just live a mediocre life. I'm not satisfied with that level of life.
And more just because of the energy and physical restrictions on being able to do things, being able to be more active and feel good, like have your body feel good. There's a lot that goes with that.
Yeah, and because it affects all aspects of your life, and it's interesting. Everything affects all aspects of your life if you want to look at it that way. Being overweight and not feeling good about yourself is going to downgrade your results that you get in your life. Not that, there's plenty of overweight people who have abundant lives, who are just living it up and doing amazing and just amazing. But for me, that was a fear that I had. And it was a real fear because I didn't want to have that. Not that I wouldn't love her, because I would still love her. Yes, physical attraction is important. That's important in a relationship, both ways. She's physically attracted to me, I'm physically attracted to her. That's important, but that's not the only thing important. It's our communication, it's our goals, it's what we're doing in our lives, what we're making of our lives. That's important to me, and I didn't want that aspect to slow us down or lower our results and things like that. And that was something that scared me. Another thing that scared me was children. How are we going to raise our children? I want to be able to be on the same page as her, how we discipline our children, how we teach our children, what they learn, what they see, how we're going to behave together as a couple. And we talked about that because I know too many relationships get broken up over children because, person A's parents did it this way, person B's parents did it this way, and they disagree, have disputes over this thing. This happened in my family. I see it happen in lots of families, and it causes a lot of problems and troubles. And I really see that with people. And that was something that really scared me. And so I said, okay, are you okay if we do these types of disciplines? And, yes, I'm okay with this. Yes, no, I'm not okay with that. And why aren't you? We talked about it. We really conversed about it and agreed to come from the same place on it. And now, since that time, we have significantly changed the way we train and discipline our children. I'm, being raised out in the country, I'm swift to give a spanking or things like that. And we've learned through other coaches that we've hired or their courses that we've bought to respond more lovingly. Yes, we still give discipline because you can't just not discipline your children and then put them free in the world and they just end up in jail all their lives. That's not good for them. It's not good for the society. It's not good at all. So yes, we still discipline, but I'm not as swift to spank now as I was. And there's still work I need to do, but I think we've really grown in that. And that was a fear I had when we were getting married.
We both have too. And there's been a lot of discussions and trying to understand each other's ideas and that's part of, growing closer together and becoming one, if you want to use that phrase, is really getting to understand each other. And then through that coming to a place where you agree and can even have the same goals, expectations, opinions about things, and we don't always have the same opinions about things, but when we make a decision, we always agree on it. And that's when we have a disagreement, trying to reach that to where we both do agree, that can be really tricky, especially on big issues. But
let's talk about that for a minute. Let me bring up a weak point on my side. So I've talked before about my crazy love for bullet bikes, right? And it kind of seems out of character for me. Everyone that knows me personally says, "You what? Like that does not fit you," but I love it. I love bullet bikes. I've owned 2 Ninja 650s. Thought about upgrading, right? Those getting to the super sports and things like that. But that is something that she didn't want me to have. And she's worried about other drivers running me over. You know, she's not worried about me being an idiot, although maybe that's been a little bit of a concern. But the main concern is that someone else runs me over because they don't see you on a motorcycle. But I wanted it anyway. The first bike she let me have. The second bike, I like really manipulated her. We'll just go with manipulation. It was high persuasion to give me this bike because I wanted to buy this bike. And that was something that we disagreed on. And we disagreed on it for what, like 2-3 weeks. And then you finally caved in and let me get it. And like I said, this would be a negative thing, but I took the bike. I got the bike, right? And it's kind of been a wedge. How did that make you feel when through that process? How did that make you feel when I did what I wanted to do on my own, regardless of what you thought, regardless of what anyone else thought, regardless of what religion or school or government teaches? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest disagreements we've had, I guess, because there was that high pressure, and I started to feel like he didn't care what I thought, and it felt very one-sided, and I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to have what he wanted, and I felt like eventually I could be okay with him having that bike, but I just wasn't ready right then, and there was a lot of pressure to do it right now. And
was it the right time?
When he didn't give me that time, that really hurt me. And I think that's the only time he's ever done that to me, like that. I don't feel like he's ever manipulated with me or
made her feel make you feel inferior, or made you feel like you have an opinion. I've always respected your opinion. Not that I'm always caving in, you're always caving in. It's not how it works. We usually come to a joint decision and then we move forward. Yeah. And that's how we've done our relationship. Now this was last year. This was just a year ago. But we had this bike for a long time, and I loved it. It was fun. I did realize there was problems with it. It was the wrong time. And I wanted it so bad, right? So that's why I went ahead and got it. And that's been an issue for us. And, our communications were still pretty good after we got the bike, but I could feel that something was wrong, obviously. And when we considered selling the bike, because we've since sold the bike, when we considered selling it, we were able to talk about what exactly was the problem there. Because I did make her feel bad. I didn't want her opinion because I just wanted what I wanted to have. And I felt trapped sitting and doing schoolwork. I was going to school at the time, and all I was doing was schoolwork all day, every day. And I wanted something to get out. And so I used that as my excuse to get me out, get me happiness, right? Things like that. And when we sold the bike, when we were deciding whether or not to sell the bike, she told me about that. Like, hey, I didn't feel like you loved me. I didn't feel respected. I didn't feel equal to you, right? I felt manipulated and belittled, those type of things. And that really affected me. Like I didn't want to hear that, first of all, because who wants to be told they're wrong, especially when they're in the wrong? And so I didn't like that, but I realized it was true. And it kind of broke my heart. Like, yeah, I did this to you, and I just shoved it away in the back burner and didn't pay attention to it. And that was really painful. I didn't want to realize it. I think with a lot of couples, when issues are brought up like this, where one partner feels hurt, the other partner isn't going to budge. That happens a lot in relationships. Like, no, we're going to do it my way, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts, and a lot of times that causes separation, that causes wedges if people don't separate it, and there's no trust anymore. There's a difference of opinions, and the power of being one is lost, and it's lost until that wedge is taken out. Now, we were still one on a lot of other issues and working through things and doing things like that. But when we decided to sell that bike, I felt like that wedge really came out. And I felt like she felt a lot happier.
And I think the biggest part was talking about it and really working through it together, not just selling bike. Because if he had just sold the bike,
yeah,
and we never talked about what had happened or figured out each other's feelings, I don't think the wedge would have been taken out.
Yeah, we didn't. If we wouldn't have brought it to the face,
Yeah, you have to actually talk about it and work through it together and try and understand each other and figure it out together.
And that's the big thing. That's the big thing. We talk about communication. Our brains are wired differently. We've taken some assessments, Jaecee and I, and we're actually exactly opposite. Like, not just, I'm outgoing, she's introverted, right? But also, like, I want results now, she likes the process. We're completely opposite. It's interesting to see, and it causes that being opposite causes a lot of problems and conflicts in a relationship unless you work it out. And then once you learn how to communicate, then your opposites become strengths, like Jaecee was talking about in the beginning. They become super powerful, and you really get to experience that power of being one. For me, in our relationship, that one of the things about is the relationship beneficial is the power of being one. Not only just the support that she gives me, not only the encouragement and the love she gives me, and the wonderful experience we have, the children we get to parent, and that wonderful part of being married, but the power of being one. When I ask for feedback, she gives me good feedback. She sees things that I don't see, and it goes the other way. I see things she doesn't see, and it's been powerful. It's just been very, very powerful having this unity in our marriage. And that had to come, the only way that could come about was through actual communication and through budging, or not budging, compromise. That would be the better word. Compromising each of our values to meet in the middle so we could have both our needs being met. I think some couples don't want to compromise. You either get that both couples are stubborn and nothing happens, or you get one person in the couple stubborn, the other one caves in all the time. And it happens every time, being walked over, the boundaries aren't respected. And I think that's a problem. I think it's a problem, and we've really learned to give up certain things that we think to meet in the middle. And I think it's caused us to grow a lot.
Yeah. I just want to add on that a little bit. I'm not sure how the best way to say this. So compromise, a lot of times when people think of compromise, they think, oh, I have to give up what I want to try and make things okay with my spouse. And that doesn't necessarily have to be true. I mean, sometimes maybe giving up some things and then maybe your spouse will give up some other things, and you kind of work together and give a little bit of balance that way. But not necessarily. Like earlier, Jaecee mentioned that when we first got married, he was really concerned about health. And that's something that he's really been interested in. He studies a lot. He's like, that catches his interest and he loves it. He loves more natural sided health ideas. And I grew up in a family where we didn't really consider that. It was the Western medicine, working with what a traditional doctor would say in the US. And so then there was that issue there where we had different ideas and different values, different
belief systems, really.
Yeah. And so I remember one of our first disagreements was when Jaecee brought up the issue. We were using a lot of white flour. I cook a lot, but I cooked with white flour and sugar and lots of
conventional things, right?
Just things that are in the average food today, but aren't necessarily healthy. And it was easy for me to agree, okay, yeah, I want to be healthy. But then at the same time, I was like, well, in my family, it was like more important to enjoy the food than it was to be healthy. And so the idea that I grew up around was, well, if you enjoy it, then it's okay. And it's more important to have that than to be healthy and take care of your body.
You only live once, you might as well enjoy it, right?
Yeah, and so I was like, I kind of wanted both. So I could see, yeah, that's important, and I could agree with them on that, but I didn't want to actually cut out some of the foods that I was used to having, or change the way that I made them. And so we kind of did a compromise where I did some things different and then not everything, and that's how we lived at first. But as I got to understand his perspective more, I felt like my perspective actually changed, because now I'm to a point where health is just as important to me as it is to him. And there's a lot of health things that I actually go out and study on my own and look for on my own without him saying, hey, maybe you could look into this, or maybe you could change this for us in our diet.
She's changed my mind.
So
by
getting to understand him more, and by trying to ask for his opinions and get to know him more, then my opinions actually changed. And now our perspective on that is the same. And I think if Jaecee wasn't in my life ever, I would still stay with this. I wouldn't go back to the way I used to live. And so there's that, where sometimes if you don't agree on something, keep learning about each other, keep asking each other questions and trying to get to know each other, and figuring out why they think that or why they feel that way. And maybe one of your perspectives will actually change, and then it'll be easy to come to an agreement because you'll feel the same way.
Well, and I think that's a perfect example, because like I wanted to change, but there were some things I didn't know how to change, and she's helped me to learn those things, about the healthy eating that has caused us to change. And in fact, she's gotten into ancient grains like emmer, is that how you say it? Emmer and einkorn,
and spelt and kamut.
Yeah.
That's what we make our bread with.
And they look just like rice grains. They're not the fat little bulbous, modified wheat grain that we have today that actually cause a lot of bowel problems. People get irritable bowel syndrome or leaky gut, and there's issues with that, and the pain that comes with that, right? As well as the mental fog that comes with that. So I wanted to change our diet, but I think she has significantly changed our diet so much for the better, and I love it. And she does bread classes, and the bread that she makes, I'm not just saying this because she's my wife. I'm not just saying this because it's to her face. I'm the guy who says nice things behind your back, right? That bread, it's got a perfect crust, and it's chewy, and it's filling. Like, it's amazing. Like, I have not had a more chewy, more enjoyable, wholesome bread. No white flour, nothing. I know this is side tangent, but oh my goodness. You can see that she compromised for me, I compromised for her, and we have both benefited. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Better than what either of us had thought.
Yeah, and we would have never found that out had we not been able to compromise for each other. It has to go both ways. Some people say, well, love, you need to have 50%, 50%. No, it's 100% and 100%, both ways. You both have to meet in the middle and learn to grow. And there's been so much benefit that's come from it.
And there's the funny thing is, I was afraid of losing something that I enjoyed. And when I did kind of let go of that and start looking for more options, I found something that we both enjoyed more than what we had before.
Yeah. And it's been powerful. It's been so cool. And we're kind of getting close on time here, but we kind of painted this picture like, hey, we're wonderful. And hopefully not completely, because you saw, my horrible mistake with the motorcycle. I wanted to bring that up so you don't think that we're perfect.
And just so you guys know, he really isn't, like, that's not Jaecee. That's not how he treats other people. I've never seen him treat anybody like that. He's not a manipulative person. That's not normally him. It was just like this one time, and that's why it was kind of like a shock to me, is because it was very abnormal for him. It wasn't himself. That's not the way he usually is.
Yeah, and I put my focus on that instead of what the big picture. I wanted the pleasure now instead of the pleasure over the lifetime, right? The big picture, and that's important to keep that. And I hope you can see that we're not perfect. We're still learning, but we don't fight hardly ever. like I said, that was a year ago. That was our last serious fight that I can think of, and before that, there weren't many before that. Maybe the first couple of years, there was some because we were learning the differences, learning each other, learning how to communicate those certain things. And that was kind of a struggle in our early relationship. And, but we don't fight. Yes, sometimes we have disagreements, but they're never heated. We talk about it. She tells me her point, I tell her my point of view, right? And then we meet in the middle. And it's been very beneficial. And go ahead.
They've gotten less and less and less, and over the years they've gotten fewer disagreements and
less heated.
Mm-hmm. More we're able to work through them so much faster and better, and
we're learning how to become one. It's cool because we're starting to think the same, which is amazing. It's very cool. Now, with that being said, we do not have the same opinion on everything. Her religious views are somewhat different than my religious views or spiritual views, right? And we work through that, but she never makes me feel inferior. She never makes me feel like, I'm not good enough or I'm wrong. One thing that I've really appreciated, and I think all couples could learn to implement in their relationship, is the openness, being open in your mind, unconditional with your love, being open. See, that unconditionalness comes from being open with your love. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have standards. That doesn't mean you go off and just, do whatever you think you want to do, right? There's borders, boundaries. Those are important in a relationship. You need to have boundaries. Without boundaries, there's confusion, there's upset, there's misunderstandings, right? So we have our boundaries, but we are open in our love together. We are open, unconditional with our love. We don't hold each other back. We don't make each other feel bad or inferior or belittle each other. And that's huge. I think that's been not only huge for me to create that environment for her, but huge for her to create the environment for me. It's got to come both ways, because if she didn't do that back to me, if she didn't reciprocate that love or that openness or that safe environment, that would be a problem for me. I would probably start contracting up and be angry all the time myself. But she doesn't. She loves me freely, and that's huge. That's very huge. Anything else you want to say before we close off?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very good too. And hopefully this episode has been helpful for you. If you're seeing this on YouTube, but you prefer to listen to podcasts when you drive, we have an Apple station, we have a Spotify. I link these in the description on the YouTube. And then if you're listening to this on, in your car or whatnot with the Apple or the Spotify, we have links for our Facebook page, our YouTube page, where you can watch this episode, watch other things, learn some more things. And hopefully that is helpful and conducive to you bettering your relationship. And with that, and with what we've shared today, I hope you do make your best relationship. I wish you success, much love, and I bid you adieu. See you guys.